Yeah. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? So I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day. When I say friend of mine, I was actually speaking to my old sensei. So I joined a martial arts club about 4.5 years ago. At the time, they were called Isogai. Now they are called For Life. They're based on the Central Coast of New South Wales, which is where I originate from. And I was talking to him, and we were just basically, he was kind of bigging me up on my journey and, you know, how I've moved to Melbourne and how I'm chasing my dreams and stuff like that. And we were talking about my introduction to martial arts and kind of like, the path that I'm taking with that being a big part of my life these days. So I thought I would just quickly explain and touch on my introduction to martial arts and the evolution of it in my life and kind of what it represents to me and what it will inevitably represent for me going forward. So, 2018-ish, let me paint a picture. I'll give you a little bit more pretext. So, up until 2018, I was a very I would say I was a weak-minded person. As far as I avoided conflict, I avoided confrontation. I did not express my anger in healthy ways. I had the potential to be deceitful if I thought that might make someone like me, or I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings. There were definitely parts of me that were like, not that nice, I would have considered myself a nice guy, but there were definitely things that I did that were not that nice. And, that's just me being vulnerable here. But I think a lot of that came from the fact that I wasn't confident in who I was, and I felt like I had to kind of appease people. And that just led to this like weird subversion of, my true kind of like feelings and thoughts about things, where I felt like I really couldn't show that at certain times. So it just created this like weird dynamic where I just, there were definitely parts about me that I was ashamed of and that I didn't like. So that existed, and there also existed this idea where I was definitely standoffish, or I had a very negative opinion of people who were ultra masculine. People like rugby league players, people who went to the gym. Even though I love rugby league, I had this like, this insecurity or this anxiety when I was around people like that. And it came from basically a couple of places, obviously my own insecurities, but it also came from some incidences that occurred when I was younger. I basically got assaulted a couple of times by, large groups of large men, and that really fucked me up. That really like led to me having a lot of insecurities and a lot of issues with self-esteem, and just feeling like not very emasculated because of those situations. So it just created this like weird dynamic in my head where I saw masculinity and I saw men who were like interested in violence and sports like that. I saw them as like, almost like villains, that in my world, they were villains because they represented fear, they represented danger, they represented something that I should avoid. Now, because of those, different things, the idea of martial arts and fighting seemed so outrageous to me. I just thought it was so dumb. All these like bloodthirsty fucking barbarians. Look at them smashing each other. I just thought it was below me. I just, I put myself on a fucking high horse, and I just thought never would I ever fucking touch that or go near it. Anyway, lo and behold, a good friend of mine, Jack, he starts training at this club with my brother Dave. They start training at this Isogai. And Isogai at the time, I believe, are doing, like a karate / Krav Maga with some striking, maybe a few like arm and arm bars and like chokes and stuff like that, like street defense, self-defense, I guess you would call it. But they're from what I've gathered, they're striking, kicking, punching, knees, elbows, stuff like that. No real takedowns, nothing on the ground, but a lot of like, practicing combinations on pads and a little bit of sparring as well. So my brother and Jack, they join this club and they start going to this club regularly, and they really start enjoying it. And this one particular afternoon, I remember we're down in the we're at my old place in Woy Woy, and we're down by the pool, and Dave and Jack are like practicing some stuff that they'd learnt at the class that night. And I come down and I obviously don't think much of it, but I join in because they're hanging out, they're doing some cool shit. So I join in, and they start showing me a couple of things, and I'm like, this is kind of interesting, I guess. I think they show me like a over the top elbow, then a step in elbow, and like some kind of combination that involves some elbows. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fucking cool. Anyway, so I decide, let's give it a crack. I go to a class with Jack and Dave, and basically I'm introduced to Sensei. He's an older gentleman. He probably in his like late 50s, early, maybe 60. Not 100% sure, but just this like, wily little cat that's like bouncing around, heaps of energy. Sensei Mick, this is. And he basically introduces me in. The whole club introduces themselves and kind of invites me in. And I start training. And I tell you what, I left that first session totally enamored. I fell in love. I really did. I fell in love with the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the friendship, the energy. You're sweating, you're hitting things, and everyone was congratulating me and patting me on the back and just building me up and just showing me love and, really, doing a lot to kind of add confidence to a kid, to a man at this point, but, in my mind, a kid that, didn't have a lot of confidence at the time. So I fell in love with this concept. I fell in love with the fact that, I could go there and put some training in with some men, and we could share that energy together. And it was a really wholesome, positive thing. So I start training there frequently. I start going there 2-3 times a week. Dave eventually, after a couple months, my brother Dave, he taps out. He focuses on some other things. But me and Jack, we continue to go pretty frequently. Maybe 3-4 times a week, even 5 times a week. And I'm going like pretty frequently. Now, it's really cool, this club, because we start sparring pretty much instantly. And the fact that you can feel people punching you and kicking you, and you can kick and punch back, and you can test range, and you can feel like force against your body. Like all those things are super, super important, for a bunch of stuff, which I'm not going to get into now, but like, especially when you're learning martial arts, I think it's really important to feel contact and know like what a punch feels like, know what a kick feels like, et cetera, et cetera. So I do that for like a few months, and I'm really getting into it, really enjoying my time with the club. And then I decide to move to Melbourne, which, was part of me chasing my music dream and kind of like, trying to progress things there. So I end up moving away from the Central Coast. I moved to Melbourne with a whole heap of people, and, we all know how that story's going. So my martial arts, kind of story takes a bit of a turn at this time, because I obviously we moved to Melbourne. I don't have a club. I developed a bit of a shoulder injury because I wasn't loading like my lead hook very well, and I ended up putting like a bunch of force through my left shoulder, which led to some kind of chronic injury that I didn't manage well, which made it hard to punch and like kind of made me a bit standoffish from doing any combat sports. At the same time, COVID rolls around, and basically any of that stuff is off the tables anyway. So it's a combination of like, I don't really have a club, shoulders a bit fucked, and COVID, which leads me to not really being involved in martial arts consistently for about 2 years as COVID ravages the entire world. Now, toward the middle/end of 2021, I moved to Collingwood in Melbourne. and I joined a club called Absolute MMA. And this becomes a bit of a resurgence in my martial arts love. Now, by this time, I'm well and truly watching like UFCs and being really enthralled by the storylines and you know, all the different kind of like characters that are involved in the UFC and mixed martial arts as a whole. Like I'm totally becoming, I'm a fan. I'm becoming a fan of these people, of their journeys, you know, their sacrifice, you know, overcoming the odds, all of that stuff, their championship qualities. I'm really becoming a fan of all of this. Now, at the same time, I start training at Absolute in Collingwood. And what I learn is that Absolute is one of the best MMA gyms in Melbourne, potentially even the country, and they have a host of really talented mixed martial artists there who are essentially either about to turn pro or already in the pro ranks and are very, very, very skilled, qualified, and, you know, have kind of like the potential to do really big things. Now, as it turns out, one of them recently joined the UFC, Jack Jenkins, Farjack, had his first fight over in UFC on the Volkanovski card and, over in Perth on the Volkanovski card and got a dub straight up. So, you know, basically Absolute MMA are just like producing a lot of like really good talent. And that's where I kind of started rekindling my love of martial arts. Now, from there, I move over to Brighton. Anyway, fast forward like a year or so, and I moved to Richmond. And that's where I joined Tribute Boxing Gym. Now, from there, I ended up really falling in love with boxing and realizing that I needed to like work on my footwork, realizing that my cardio needed work, realizing that, you know, I needed to progress as a martial artist and add some more skills. So that's where the boxing kind of came in. I took up the challenge of having my first ever fight. And, you know, that's kind of actually what prompted this podcast is Sensei Jace hit me up and we were talking about, you know, my walkout, which I'll link below here. I'll link the fight and my walkout to the fight because I really had the idea that like when I go for my first fight, or if I have any more fights, it'll be the same thing, but definitely for my first and maybe my only fight, I wanted to walk out to my own music rapping. And that's what I did. I fucking walked out. Ruku walked in front of me. He was rapping Tainted. I was rapping. I'm like vibing out. I'm just enjoying my moment because, you know, as far as I was concerned, I slaved away to get my body and mind in shape to get in that ring. And I wanted to enjoy the fuck out of that moment. So I had my fight. I ended up losing to a better man on the night. And I'm happy. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that chapter is closed in the book of martial arts for my life, but new chapters are starting to open. I don't know where it will lead immediately, but what I can say is in terms of striking, in terms of discipline, in terms of strength training, I have not taken a day off for months now. I'm doing all the training on my own until I can get back to Absolute and start training under one of the guys there, either Dylan or Sam or Alistair or, you know, maybe even Jack, until I can get back there and start training. One of my goals is to get into BJJ this year and start training there as well. But essentially, martial arts is something that'll be a part of my life for the rest of my life now. It's something that I've definitely fallen in love with. And, you know, if you can hear the change that had to happen inside of me from 4 years ago, being this scared little boy that like avoided confrontation and you know, powerful men at all costs, to now, you know, being content with, you know, a certain amount of violence or confrontation. You know, that's a huge change. And, you know, I don't ever want violence. I will never ask for violence. I still think that like violence without a prerequisite is a bad thing, is a torturous thing that you don't want in your life. But in saying that, my ability to conduct violence has given me a sense of confidence, not arrogance, just confidence. And I am happy about that. It's given me the ability to like not want to cross the road because I fear for my safety anymore. You know, it's given me the ability to look at someone in the eyes and just say, no, I don't agree with that. because I'm allowed to do that as a human being. And I haven't had that for a really long time because I've been scared. I've been scared of like a retort. I've been scared of violence back at me. And, you know, that still might come, but I would rather exist in my own body and not be fearful of like, you know, consequence, not be fearful of like, you know, people rejecting me and shutting me down and hurting me. I would rather just be like, you know, be able to like just walk on my own 2 feet, etc. So yeah, that's a little introduction and story, a long-winded fucking story. With that said, of my journey, introduction into martial arts, kind of, you know, some of the twists and turns along the way, and you know where it goes from here. I don't really know, but I do know that, you know, this is a for life thing. It started with for life on the Central Coast of New South Wales, and that's the truth of it. Like, this is a for life thing. I've made friends for life through martial arts. I will continue to make friends through martial arts, and this is something that I will love and respect and adore, you know, to the end of my days. So, yeah, thank you to everyone who's played a part in the journey. Thank you to Sensei, Jace, and Mick. Thank you to Jackie and Dave, and everyone else who's played a role along the way so far. Yeah, never getting off this train. So, look, if you've been on the fence about joining a martial arts club, if you've been on the fence about getting into, you know, some form of martial arts, whether that's kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing, karate, Krav Maga, BJJ, wrestling, you know, whatever it is, if you've been on the fence, please, I implore you, go jump in right now, because you'll never, ever, ever look back. You will love the day that you decided to take that step for the rest of your life. If you decide that you want to challenge yourself, go find somewhere, have a fight, challenge yourself, push yourself mentally, physically to do something that you never, ever, ever thought was possible. Please, I promise you won't regret it. Anyway, that's it for the Sav Show, guys. If you got any questions about any of this shit, or you have some suggestions, you know, maybe places for me to start looking, training, thinking about, I'm open to all of it. Like, you know, I just want to learn. I want to be educated, and I'm happy to, you know, do the same for you as well. So anyway, that's it for the Sav Show this week, guys. I love you all, and yeah, I'll chat to you next week. Let's go.